Hey, what's going on, everybody? Your favorite security officer here, Drew Rothenberger, owner of Shield Security PLLC. Got a real treat for you today. I'm here with my brother Dave that I met through Apex. Amazing guy. I wanted to bring him on, share some stories that he has of security, but also let him tell his story to you. I have a lot of people that listen, and hopefully you can turn to him with some more questions and you can, grow from listening to him. So, Dave, take it away. Tell me your story.
Man, thank you, Drew. I appreciate being here. This is exciting, and I've been following you on Facebook recently and watching your growth. And man, your reach is exploding recently. I'm not sure what you're doing, but when I reached out to you, it was like this dude has got something cooking, and I just wanted to get closer to you and get to know you better. But yeah, thanks for letting me come on and tell me what part of my story you want me to share, because I've got, I can go a couple of directions. Where do you want me to start?
Uh, when I met you through Apex, you were
Yeah.
coaching. So tell everybody a little bit about your coaching, because some of the stuff that
Yeah.
I had heard from you at our Apex meetup, I've implemented, and that's definitely helped me grow. So I want you to share
Super.
that with everybody.
All right, I appreciate that. So yeah, like you just said, Drew, I have been in the coaching, kind of the personal business coaching space now for really since about 2005 is when I actually started getting paid to coach people. But
Mm.
before 2005, I had been full time in the mortgage business since, gosh darn, I'm trying to think, 1988. I got into the mortgage business. And so my story really quickly, started there. But what happened was I progressed, like in a lot of industries, from a salesperson, they call it a loan officer in the mortgage industry.
Mhm.
And within the first year, I was the top producer, and then I was promoted to a sales manager position. And from there, I was promoted to a branch manager. And so, at least in the mortgage world, they tend to take like whoever the top producer is and they make them the manager. They just assume that person's going to know how to manage and lead other people.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so what happened then was, by the time I hit, I'm going to say my late 20s, I was doing really good in kind of that managerial career or path. But I learned pretty quickly that there was a difference between managing and leading. And I would say probably about the time I hit 30, I decided I needed to dig in and figure out what was the difference between being a really good leader versus just a manager, somebody that could, micromanage a report, have a sales meeting and things like that. And so that was really my history for the next, 20 years, was
Mhm.
coaching and leading really big sales teams and individual loan officers. And then it wasn't until 2005, 2006 that I actually stepped out, started my company, and decided I was going to take that to the marketplace and get paid. And I have to tell you, it's kind of a cool thing getting paid to coach, which is
Yeah.
really what I was doing before, but I was doing it more in a manager leader position than as just a coach, just solely as a coach. So
Gotcha.
that's kind of that. But then I think, if you don't mind, do you mind I just share? I'll share kind of what I shared at the Apex meeting. And for those of you who don't know, especially if you're in DFW, we've just got this really cool group of local people that are trying to network. And so when we were able to talk a couple of weeks ago at that meeting, I was sharing with Drew and a few others that what I have done is, over the last 4 or 5 years, I've literally, just like we're sitting here talking right now, Drew, I've literally
Mhm.
done this over 4,500 hours since 2019, one on
Love it.
one or in group coaching settings, but over 4,500 hours. I've just sat here and done this. And I did it for two purposes. I did it to perfect my skills because I really am passionate about coaching and leading people. And I believe, and you'll hear me talk more about this, but I'm really passionate about men stepping up. Men
Yes.
need to step up as fathers. We need to step up as men, leaders of our households. And that doesn't mean women can't, wear the pants as well, but men have a responsibility as dads
Yep.
in the workplace and in our communities. And
Definitely.
you being in security, you see a lot of things that are pretty rough out there, and I think a lot of that could be taken care of or minimized if we had more men stepping up. And so I just really decided that was my passionate niche, to help men in all those areas that I mentioned, because I can help talk through the issues that men are going to go through. A lot of pitfalls, mistakes that I've
Yeah.
made, successes, more mistakes. And I think part of this is you have to be able to admit your mistakes. And so I just decided, one, I'd get really good at it. And I wanted to be able to perfect that so that I could then take that out and be able to help more people and train other prospective coaches that wanted to really get good and learn how to coach. And that's what I was sharing at the Apex meetup group, was that I've launched something called Top Paid Coach. And what
Mhm.
I'm doing is I am training other adults, aspiring coaches that want to share their knowledge and information and their skills with others in their respective fields, but they don't maybe know how to get started. So I've put together a really robust training program to teach people how to coach, and not just how to coach, but then how to get paid to do it, which is really cool.
Yeah, I love it. Uh, you know, when you touched on leaders, a lot of the times they take the top producers. I've been in several different companies, organizations where, you know, a guard can show up on time and look, good, but a lot of the guard companies I'm a part of, they promote from seniority. And there's been
Yes.
guys promoted that were, great officers, great guards, but they just
Mm-hmm.
hadn't been exposed to any kind of leadership skills or masterminds or the
Yes.
culture itself. They just saw, workers. They didn't understand that any organization you have, there's a culture to it. And that's one reason I
Absolutely.
was so lucky for you to come on the show, because it lets us open the fact that every job, every structure, every company, there's a culture in order to not only lead others, but to be a successful person, be a successful security officer or a successful painter or successful owner. You have to understand the culture of the people you work with and the environment you're put into.
Yes. That's a
So,
great point. And, one of the things I can tell you with your company, you're trying to put a culture, not just a culture, but one that has framework and structure in place. And I think in any business, but in the security business as well, it's really important, because that structure, and I know you and I had this conversation, offline, that
mhm.
structure, that adds clarity and consistency for your team. And that then translates all the way over to, and I had made a note after you told me that, because I thought, man, you're right. When you add clarity to your team and to your offerings of what your company can do, now not only do your team members know what's expected of them, they know what they need to deliver to the client or the end consumer that you guys are working with. But then I was thinking about everything from systematizing things with a framework to when you guys go out to a job location, how you guys approach things. And I would have to guess, and I don't know, but I do watch the news a little bit, not much. It's hard to not get that in your head when you go home at night sometimes. But I would have to guess the security industry has changed a little bit, man. From there's a lot of tough, rough, crazy things going on. And so some of those maybe older, what I would call the old guard, that have
Mhm.
done it the old way for a long time. I don't know. Do you find in your industry, like a lot of others, that some of the old guard don't want to kind of come up to newer standards and do things in a more efficient, safe way? What are you seeing in your industry?
Yeah, I've had I worked at a building one time, and there was a guy who had gotten out of security, and he came back. Um, he had retired from his W-2 job, and he was in his 60s and just kind of wanting a laid back position where he didn't really
Yeah.
have to do anything and just sit and collect a paycheck. And
Mm.
I even told, and at that point, even though we were both on the same level, I was struggling a little bit to uh, talk to him in the manner, just because I was like, oh, he's older, uh, he's got more experience, but I still had to, eventually I worked up enough to tell him, hey, if you're not constantly aware of what's going on, if you're not taking this job 100% serious, something's going to happen and you're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
And he said, well, this building has a low, there's really nothing going on here. I said, that's such a dangerous mindset, because then you get
Right.
complacent, and, it's almost like you have your head in the sand when you're walking
Yeah.
around, and then you don't know, some crazy guy, came in with a gun, or some intoxicated guy came in, and people just say, oh, you're paranoid. It's like, maybe, but I get to go home at the end of the night. So
Yes.
I'll
Yeah.
take
I
it.
got to go home to my family, and something you just said, I'm big into the leadership and have been studying John Maxwell and for, the last 20, 25 years. And in one of his books, I think it's the 15 laws of invaluable growth. I think it's like the 15th law. He talks about the law of contribution. And it's exactly what you just said. You have to continually, or the way he states it is, you have to continually be investing in growing so that
Mhm.
you can pour into others or do better at whatever your skill is. And, man, that old guard security guy sitting there, that's exactly what you're talking about. It's that law of contribution. And I just think that, that's huge, because, when you and I met through Apex, down here in Dallas, we're both doing that. We're both trying to sharpen our saws. We're trying to get better, meet people, get into rooms with other idea and thought leaders, to raise our level and really force each of ourselves to be better. And that's, I know that's what you're doing. And that's why I was so excited, getting connected with you. Is kind of cool getting to, hang out and meet up and just get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, no. And you earlier you had asked me, hey, we're not, I'm not necessarily in your field or space with security. Do you still want me to come on to the show? And I said, of
Yeah.
course, just because it's
Mm.
exactly what you just said. It's all about talking to different people, learning different
Yeah.
skills. I tell my guys, anyone comes to work for me, I want you to always be striving to be better.
Yes.
And it's not like have my chin up high going, hey, I need you guys to be better. No, I try and do that every day. And
Absolutely.
some days I'm worn out and tired and don't succeed, but you should always be striving to be better, because you never know everything in your field. It's impossible.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? But that's what leadership is about. And so, it's, even though, I'm a few years older than you, wink, wink, just a few, but it's so cool to hear you say that, because that's what a good leader, you're not trying to be better than your team, you're trying to say to them, we all have to get better. And at the end of the day, that's what, the difference between leadership and management is, really at the end of the day, it's a leader is empowering that person to take action. And that's really the difference. Where a manager is telling them to do things, a leader empowers them to want to do better. And that's what you're trying to do with your company and your team. And I'm telling you, when you do that, you're just going to grow at a much higher rate than somebody that doesn't have those leadership skills. So I think it's really cool. I always call it the push pull. Sometimes as a leader, you got to go back and push them. And
Mhm.
then sometimes you have to kind of, like pull them across the bridge. But then the really cool thing happens when you keep doing that and coming alongside them and saying, I want to help you be better. How can I help you? All of a sudden, next thing you know, it's like they're walking alongside you and you're not pushing or pulling. And then next thing you know, you see them leading another team member on your team passing on. And that's when, Drew, it gets really exciting because, man, I get get goosebumps when I say that, because that's when the magic happens, because then you've done a really good job. And so I just love hearing it from you, because, man, with that kind of attitude, you're going to continue to grow and do some incredible things in the security industry. I have a feeling you plan on turning it upside down and doing some pretty crazy things, don't you?
Well, I don't know about crazy, but I look
Crazy
at
fun.
the
How's that?
yeah, yeah, I look at the industry as a whole, and there's so many big companies that, they just say, "Hey, you look like you can stand for 6 hours. Here's a uniform that doesn't fit and it's uncomfortable so that we can save some pennies. I need you to
Mhm.
go here and, do this job that you really have no training for just so they can get a paycheck." And,
Yeah.
it puts the officer at a disadvantage. It puts the client at a disadvantage. And, companies got to do what they got to do. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's not beneficial for anybody. And um, Nick, my number two, great guy. He also embodies that follow me kind of mentality. So
Yeah.
whenever he and I, got together, I saw the same core values. I mean, he was already at that level, so I didn't really have to, pull him along. We meet and collaborate, and he's an awesome guy. But we both agree on the bigger companies that do that. And I told him right off the bat, I don't want to be one of those, you know, conglomerates. When you take the bigger companies, I'm not going to mention them because I don't want to get canceled or anyone mad at me or anything. But
Exactly. We are in a
um,
cancel society.
they are more like the Walmarts and the McDonald's, and they crank out the burger and that feeds everybody. I want to be the restaurant that makes the filet mignon. You know what I'm saying?
I do, man.
I want to be the elite and the top, and it takes time, but I'm willing to put it in, meeting great people like you, learning from you, and learning from everyone else in Apex. Um, we've been talking about Apex. So a lot of you out there that watch my channel and follow me, you've heard me talk about Apex, how it's just changed lives. It was created by Ryan Stewman. Look him up. Apex is a wonderful mastermind. Yeah, you pay to belong to it, but it doesn't just help you out with business. It also helps you out with, you know, relationships, leaderships. That's why Dave and I are sitting here talking.
Right.
Your faith, physical fitness. I can jump on the Facebook Apex group and say, "Hey guys, I have a problem with, I don't know, personal credit. Can anyone point me in the right direction?" And I don't know, Dave, within 5 minutes, you got 6 or 7 people saying, "Hey, I can help with that," or "Hey, uh,
Yes.
you know, talk to me or talk to this guy." So yeah,
Yes.
whenever we talk about Apex, it's just because we're passionate about it. But Dave, let me ask you. You mentioned something about the old guard. What have been your experiences with security officers,
Yeah,
if you've had any?
it's a little more limited, but I think it's a good example. Like, I'm in a fairly large office building here in Plano, Texas right now. And I would tell you, and after getting to meet you, you've set a standard with the way a uniform should look. And like when I walk down, when I walk out in the lobby, they're the uniforms don't fit. They've just put somebody out there as security that, quite honestly, I wouldn't, if there was a issue, I don't know how safe I might feel. And again, I'm not going to say what building I'm in, because I don't want to get you canceled. But I think that's just, I think it's typical of what we've seen, though, with the way business has been done for a long time. And I think it's safe to say that since some of the things that have happened in our country, and even more recently down here in Texas, in Plano, at the mall, which we don't have to get into that, but um, it just speaks to having up to date, qualified. And when I say qualified, I think people that are that are carrying, that are ready, willing, and able to do the things that are necessary to keep people safe. And I know that gets into other issues with, people that have kids and things like that, don't want their kids to, have security guards in schools, but man, it sure is a lot better than the alternative. And so, I glad when I say this, man, I'm so appreciative for people like you, because we need people that are willing to do the hard, work and put yourself in harm's way to protect people, because it's not just in other countries anymore. I mean, it's here.
It's here.
It's
Yeah.
here. And that's sad. So
It it really is. And it's definitely a societal issue and a cultural issue. And I hope it gets better, but you know, obviously, yeah, you're welcome. And I do it because I was a former police officer. Nick was a former police officer, and we both love security. We love helping people. We love the planning and the execution. And after every time he and I do an event or we have to do personal protection, we sit down and we say, "Hey, what went right? What could we do better?" And it's not a a lot of companies and some guys would be like, "Oh, you're just micromanaging Monday morning quarterback." It's like, no, that's how you get better.
how you get
So
better. Yeah, I
exactly.
think, and again, we talk about Apex again, but 1% better every day, 1% better every week. Just,
Yeah,
nobody's perfect. We're never going to be. I mean, there's only one person that was ever created, that was perfect. And I'm not God. And so, but if we're striving to be better, and that's what, one of the things in Apex, try to just be better. And I know, we keep saying that, but it's a group that just keeps helping each other raise the bar. And I think other businesses need to do more of that.
yeah.
Look at, what worked, even when things go well, hey,
Hmm.
what could we have done just a little better, a little more efficient? I think
Definitely.
those are the things that I think are pretty cool. But now I just appreciate you letting me come on this show. I think it's
Oh, no.
really cool. And I want to ask, when you hit like 500 episodes, can I come
Mhm.
back when you hit 500?
Oh, for sure. And I'll probably have you on sooner just because you have no idea how awesome I felt at the last meet or at the last meetup when you're like, "Hey, can I come on your show?" I was like, "Okay." So, that was a real blessing. And I'll have you on more often whenever we have our meetups. I definitely want to start having more people and not just people in the security, because I hope yeah, my channel is meant for security and safety, but I also want people to be educated. And if someone's watching just for some security stuff and then they learn about a new book or they learn about a leadership skill, it's that's what we encompass.
That's how we all grow, man. That's how we grow. I agree.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, until next time, everybody, especially Dave, stay safe, stay alert.
See you, man.